story and they said, WNBA, stop playing games. Again, I mean, this is typical. I wouldn't expect much different at this point. WNBA players deserve a higher salary and better working conditions. Send an email to WNBA leadership telling them to negotiate in good faith and pay their players fairly. So this was the same day that the schedule was released by the WNBA. And some WNBA players were actually commenting on social media, like Azare Stevens.
That reaction alone tells you everything about the state of the WNBA's collective bargaining negotiations. Azure Stevens throwing question marks on Instagram. Aya Wilson posting confused reaction clips. Players learning about the 2026 schedule the same way fans did, by doom scrolling through social media. Because here's what just went down. On January 23rd, the WNBA dropped the entire 2026 schedule out of nowhere. May 8th season opener. The Toronto Tempo makes its debut. The Portland Fire is back. 44 games locked in. And the Players Association? They're still sitting there, waiting on a response to the proposal they submitted before Christmas. The league is moving forward. The players are being left in the dark. And that silence? It speaks louder than any press conference ever could.
The Indiana Fever versus Chicago Sky rivalry is finally dead. It was pretty much dead on arrival last year, but they had them play each other like 5 or 6 times. But this year, the Indiana Fever is only playing the Chicago Sky 3 times. And now it seems like the WNBA has moved on, and they are definitely pumping up this Caitlin Clark versus Paige Beckers.
Take a closer look at what the league just did. In that entire press release, they highlighted exactly 2 players, Caitlin Clark and Paige Beckers. Not the reigning MVP, not the defending champs. The focus was strictly on the 2 biggest names who move TV ratings. The league is already manufacturing a rivalry before either of them has even hit free agency. Opening weekend, May 9th, Fever versus Wings. Clark versus Beckers. That's the centerpiece of their marketing push, even though the matchup might be completely irrelevant by the time rosters are finalized. Because here's the problem. Free agency hasn't started. The CBA still isn't finished. And Moss salaries are about to explode from $250,000 to over $1 million. Once money like that enters the picture, loyalty becomes optional. Players think differently. Agents think differently. And front offices start doing cold-blooded math about who is actually worth a max slot.
I want to actually look at the Indiana Fever schedule. So, of course, they're opening up with Dallas, and I think that's super smart. And I believe that they play them 1, 2, 3 times. And I'd have to go through here to see which team they play the most, but that was definitely something from last year's schedule. Like, it was so lopsided the amount of times the Fever played the Chicago Sky, and I believe that they won every single matchup against them. And I would you guys dive into this schedule and be like, oh, this game is going to be good, or I can't wait to see this matchup or this whatever. But free agency hasn't happened, and I feel like I'd be doing you guys.
And that's the part everyone seems to be ignoring while celebrating the schedule drop. The Fever are plastering Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Kelsey Mitchell across all their marketing. But will that trio even exist by the time May arrives? Mitchell's contract situation is messy. Boston could easily pull massive offers from other teams. Clark is the only guaranteed piece because she's locked into her rookie deal. Minnesota is marketing Nphisa Collier like a franchise pillar, but what happens to the rest of their roster once they have to start paying her 8 figures? New York just rebuilt their entire coaching staff and still has major roster decisions hanging in the air. And Chicago? They might lose Angel Reese entirely if her situation with the front office continues to spiral toward a trade request. What we're really looking at is a 2026 schedule built on assumptions that may not survive the chaos of the next 60 days.
Does that actually mean a season is going to happen? Does that mean that they've made progress in the CBA? Not necessarily. Alexa Filippo tweeted via the WNBA, releasing the 2026 schedule is a key step as we prepare for the WNBA's 30th season and allow teams, partners, broadcasters, and fans to begin the essential planning for the year ahead. The league views the schedule release as a necessary part of business operations that allows teams to start logistical planning, sell ticket packages, also to secure optimal arena dates, all the more crucial for teams who don't own.
But the league had to drop this schedule. Alexa Filippo laid out the business reality in her reporting. Teams need to lock in arena dates, especially franchises that don't own their buildings. Season ticket packages must go on sale. Broadcast partners need time to plan their coverage. If the WNBA waited any longer, they risked losing premium arena slots to circus tours, concerts, and other events. That's real revenue walking out the door, revenue the players are demanding a larger share of in this CBA negotiation. So the league made a strategic move, released the schedule early, project confidence that a deal is inevitable, and push the narrative that everything is business as usual. In doing so, they're also subtly shifting public perception away from the players and back toward the league. And remember what happened in December? The players submitted their proposal, specific revenue-sharing terms, higher base salaries, improved conditions, and the league responded with silence. Over a month of it.
Also posted on Threads, she said, me looking at the schedule release, and then it's like a clip from a movie and it's this guy like banging the table. It kind of seems like the players are a little bit confused as to why the WNBA released the schedule, or they are not as excited as fans are, because I think they're also thinking like, we put out a proposal before Christmas and we still haven't heard back from the WNBA. However, they are now putting out the schedule. But I also think for the WNBA, this is maybe their way of gaining the public's opinion, like gaining the public support that we talked about in our last episode that the players might be losing. Like, this is their way of saying, like, we are going to continue business as usual. We are confident that we're going to get this deal done. And then on the flip side, the WNBPA is just kind of still posting on.
And then Asia Wilson also posted. Now look at what else is buried in this. Look at the schedule. The FIBA World Cup runs from September 4th to 13th in Berlin, smack in the middle of the WNBA season, creating an 18-day disruption for the league's biggest stars. And with the regular season ending on September 24th, players will be going straight from World Cup intensity into WNBA playoff basketball with almost zero recovery time. The league purposely kept the schedule at 44 games because of this World Cup conflict. According to Front Office Sports, they didn't expand the season, and they didn't add the additional rest days players have been begging for in CBA negotiations. Now think about what happened last season. Breanna Stewart battling injuries throughout the playoffs. Cameron Brink tearing her ACL. Multiple stars collapsing physically in the final 5 weeks as the schedule caught up to them. Referees letting games get overly physical, amplifying the wear and tear. Bodies broke down. And yet the league is now asking those same players to grind through a full WNBA season, fly to Germany for World Cup play, fly back, and then jump immediately into playoff-level intensity.
Unfortunately, it was just announced today that Minnesota Lynx guard Kayla McBride suffered a torn quad muscle in her right thigh while training with her overseas team, Fenerbahce, the team announced. There is no timeline for her return yet. And Kayla McBride is a big-time player. Like, she is a huge asset for the Minnesota Lynx. And this is kind of a situation. It's so unfortunate, and hopefully she fully heals up before the WNBA season. But this is a situation when I start talking about exclusivity for the WNBA in these off-season leagues. I don't care if it's Unrivaled. I don't care if it's Project B. I don't care if it's overseas EuroLeague team. These off-season leagues are going to become an issue. Hopefully, this doesn't affect Kayla McBride in free agency this year because she's a player.
And then there's the injury that just changed everything. Courtney McBride tore her quad while training with Fenerbahce in Turkey, a devastating blow with no return timeline. She's a critical piece for Minnesota, a player who could have been looking at close to $1 million under the new CBA structure if she stayed healthy. But the injury didn't happen under WNBA supervision. It happened overseas, in the off-season, far from the team's medical staff, training protocols, and insurance protections. If you're a WNBA owner watching that unfold, you're thinking one thing: risk management. You're thinking about exclusivity clauses. You're thinking about how to protect $1 million asset from getting hurt in a February game thousands of miles away. This is exactly why the WNBA needs its own winter league, not to ban overseas play, but to replace the need for it. A WNBA-sanctioned off-season competition with WNBA trainers, WNBA doctors, and WNBA insurance. A system where players can still earn real money without putting the league's biggest investments and their own careers at unnecessary risk.
Recently did an interview, and To be fair, you guys, I feel like everybody is taking this quote a little bit out of context. The interview was for her new podcast that she's starting with Miles Turner. I feel like it was like a promo interview that kind of turned into a CBA talk. And then the podcast that she's starting just got completely buried in the article because everybody's talking about the CBA. But she said, I feel like I'm just starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel in regards to the WNBA CBA. By the way, this question was phrased to her like, are you seeing a light at the end of the tunnel? And she said, I feel like I'm starting to see. I didn't take anything from this quote. I just took this as she has been the person in the WNBA PA who has been the most optimistic and I feel like has been the most positive when it comes